2025 work session for the Rutherford County School District. We will be opening the meeting with a brief moment of silence or prayer and a pledge of allegiance to the United States flag. No one is required to participate or be present for any of these, and being in this portion of the meeting is completely voluntary. Mr. Vaught, I believe you're in charge.
In charge. Join with me in a moment of personal reflection and silent prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be of service to you and our fellow man. We thank you for the many families represented here. We thank you for all the blessings. We thank you for a good start to the school system and continued safety for all our children. We ask that you give us discernment, guidance, wisdom to make the decisions you would have us to make. We ask all these things in your holy name. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First up, we have the agenda. Anyone have any comments or questions regarding the agenda? Next, we have the consent agenda. Any comments or questions regarding that? Okay, so we have no public comments, and Rutherford Proud will be on Thursday, I believe.
Correct, yes.
So next up, we have the Director of Schools Evaluation Tool, and we will be voting to approve it on Thursday.
It's the same as it's been previously.
It's the same as it's been previously.
Create whatever year that was.
Any questions or comments? Okay. Next, we have discussion for the 5-year plan.
All right, so there's going to be a couple things. Everyone has a draft. We do not need to vote on a 5-year plan on Thursday. This is just kind of to get us discussing and looking towards what's next. And I'll mention this again on Thursday, but I thank the board and I thank our county commission because we have made a ton of progress the last 30 months, over $350 million that has been put into building programs. And so you will see this 5-year plan number is $398 million compared to where we were almost $800 million year and a half ago. And so greatly appreciate that. You'll see some of these dates, and all of this, of course, can be moved around. This was just a draft. We looked at it at our retreat back in March. Before we finalize it, I would advise we wait till enrollment settles a little bit and we see where students actually end up. I'll give an enrollment report here in just a little while, but they're still moving all over the place. And so you'll see the first is land for North End High School, and so that is actually for consideration tonight. Then you'll see high school Plainview or North, and I just have them as placeholders because that'll be up for the board and based on enrollment, what we see to decide. That does say January of 2026. To hit that opening of August of 28, we probably try what date to you?
We would need to start design in November of this year and bid in June of 26.
And that's, I know that is a large project, whichever, again, direction we decide to go, Plainview or North. That is going to hit right in the middle of a county commission election. And so getting funding is going to be a challenge. And so, again, this is best case scenario, but I don't know of any school project that's been funded right before a county commission election. So just wanted that to be out there. You'll see that we have these broken down over multiple years, so projects through June of 27, and these are we always like to be conservative so that we have money available and never have to go back and ask. So this is kind of your overall. This is for a high school of 1,500 students, but with a core that could hold up to 2,500. And so your auditorium, gymnasiums, cafeteria could hold up to 2,500 students, but to start off at 1,500, so trying to go towards that smaller high school. That has been the conversations that I've had with commissioners. As I said, I think the board and myself want to go smaller. They were interested in entertaining that, as long as we built it so that future generations or future boards and county commissions could then go and add on if they so chose. We can stop right there, and then we can go to the rest of it in just a little while. So that's it.
Okay,
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Do you care, I mean, do you care, I sidestep right here, just a second, if you don't care. You know, y'all know this, for years I've been in real estate business, and I've observed things that's happened to Rutherford County over the years. And the reason I bring that up, every time we created a school zone that a child or a family could stay in, K through 12, they loved it. And it really came to fruition, I guess, with the Siegel and Blackman school zones. You know, and still to this day, they're both very, very popular locations for families to locate to. And now it appears to be Rockvale and Stewart's Creek. And so with that thought in mind, the reason I bring this up, when we get into trying to design and build these high schools, or which comes first, the chicken or the egg, so to speak, how do we balance a 1,500 student high school, 2,000 student high school, 2,500 with a feeder middle school, a feeder elementary? What does that look like size-wise? I guess is what I'm asking. I don't know if you and Trey have done this. Help me with that.
In a perfect world, you'd want 4 to 6 elementary schools feeding into a middle school, and then 2 middle schools feeding into a high school. We're not set up that way outside of your triple campuses, and they're not direct feeders either. When the board looked at rezoning at first in the, I'm trying to remember the year, would have been the spring of 2023, the direct feeder patterns was not something that was going to be feasible for the way we're set up currently. But if you're looking at a 3-school type site, you would want 4 to 6 elementary into 2 middle into 1 high school.
And the reason I say that is because one of my personal goals in getting on the board was to try to set direction, for the next 20 years, really, not being hoggish or overbearing or anything, but just being, far-sighted. How can we incorporate all of that into those wishes? Do we need to look at, 1,500 student high school, 1,600 student high school, like 1,200 student middle school, 2 elementary schools at 700, 800? I'm trying to do the numbers in my head, but basically you're looking at 400 students per grade, right? Is that what I'm driving at?
At a high school, yes, to get to that 1,500, 1,600.
To do that. And so what does that site look like? Because we all know this, land is getting more and more scarce to kind of have that concept. I've heard that from Ms. Sharp ever since I've been here. We got to find land, And so trying to determine where those sites are, they're getting fewer and further between, I guess I would say that. There are some sites out there I've identified and may be able to share with y'all sometime in the next few months, kind of off the record a little bit about ideas or where this is headed, families that are in estate planning sessions. But that's, I don't know, just kind of wanted to throw that out there. Is that achievable, first of all? Second of all, if it's not, then how do we, help these parents, pick where they raise their families as far as school zones are concerned? Because that's the worst thing that in the books, those are the 2 worst things I've been through so far right now is rezoning and books. So anyway, I didn't know if anybody else had any insight or preference there.
Mr. Tidwell.
I'm looking at here at the high school. It says high school at Plainview or North, but we had talked about possibly even doing a hybrid split. What is the difference in number? You got this 138 million. If we were to do a hybrid split, put one, a smaller high school in the north end, and a smaller high school down at Plainview on property we already have.
These would be smaller because the cost went higher because of having to make the core up to 2,500. And so when Trey and I first started looking at, we were trying to do 90 to 110 million overall. At the county commissions, kind of health and ed, and just discussions where we needed to try to get that core bigger in case other, and that's what made your cost go up. And so we could definitely, I mean, that's up to the board. If you want to go smaller, I would definitely advocate for smaller. I think that's something I believe in wholeheartedly.
Well, I think the basis for my question really, we've been doing a lot on the north end, and there's no issue with that. That's where we've had a lot of high density issues, especially with capacity. But at some point that overflows to the south end too. And if you're looking at the projections from our RSP, whenever we're doing all these numbers, we got to start making considerations down the south end as well. I would probably most likely be advocating for splitting up two smaller high schools and seeing what that difference would look like so that we are spreading out a little bit more across the county. And look, I'm all for doing what's best for the county as a whole and not just sticking to my particular zone or anything like that. But this is the conversation we've had in the past. I think it's worthy of at least investigating a little bit deeper to see what that would look like. Not only from a balance of capacity, but also just knowing that the smaller the high school is, typically the better these do with behavioral, the better you have for teacher retention. Like overall, the benefits are greater than building these huge high schools, which I know others on the board have advocated for smaller schools as well. But I just wanted to make sure that we're focusing in on that. So as we're discussing this 5-year plan, I would like to see what that difference would be when it comes to cost and capacity if we were to do a hybrid model between smaller high schools and splitting that into two rather than another large high school on one end of the county.
Let me get Mr. Vaughn, and then I'm, okay. Yes, Mr. Vaughn.
Research shows that smaller high school kids do better. More kids get to participate. And I guess if I had my way, every kid would be able to participate in something. They just do better. And, the cost may be a little higher to do a small high school compared to a comprehensive school. But again, we've got to do what's best for the kids. And to me, there's really no comparison between having a large high school or a small one. I think it helps us too, that you don't need as much land to build a small high school as you do a big one. And I just think the positives far outweigh the negatives. And I'm all for it myself.
Ms. Sharp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess it's been about 3 or 4 years ago now. Ms. Rosales and I went to Warren County. We went to Kentucky. And what I would really, this Plainview or the north end is going to come down to land, and we already have the land in Plainview. As much as I want something up on the north end, it's probably going to come down to us having land. So that said, we do have more land at Plainview, and the Warren County High School layout, I think, is a great layout. It's a V, and the junior high is on one side, and the high school is on the other side. So we could actually do a 3 grade band level at that school because it's smaller than what we typically do. I would really like to look into doing that. The community areas or the communal areas, the auditorium and the cafeteria and everything in the middle, and then we only have to have one football field. They share the football field and the baseball fields and everything like that. So we don't have to have more land like what we've had at Stewart's Creek and some of the other 3 campuses, schools. And that's great, but like Mr. Vaught said, we are running out of land. So I would really like to look at that. I call it the Jack and Jill. Mr. Lee, I don't know what they call it, but it's the V or whatever layout for Plainview, because it would be smaller and we would be able to get the middle school and the high school on that property.
Ms. Rosales.
Yeah, so, Dr. Solomon, so if I heard you right, there's 138 the $138,000
I wish.
for, well, it's an estimate. Well, sorry, I meant to say $138 million.
We can go find that tomorrow,
I'm
I
sorry. I wish it cost, well, back in the 1800s, maybe, I don't know. $138 million. That is the cost for a smaller high school?
1,500 with capacity in your core areas to go up to 2,500.
So how much are we saving to do a smaller versus a regular high school?
You basically cut a wing of classrooms off.
So how,
So like our last, I mean, what did, I'm trying to, you would give a
so
guess?
how much is that savings that we're looking at?
Probably about 15 to 20 million.
So the difference between the 1,500 high school versus the 2,500 is it $15 million?
Because of your core areas being so much bigger.
You have your same library, same auditorium, same 2 gyms, same cafeteria, same office, and you have your same athletic complex. But what is missing is the classrooms for 1,000 students. And I
Okay.
hate to say that's the inexpensive space, because none of it's inexpensive, but comparatively speaking, that's the less expensive of the square footage.
So, I mean, I want to save money and save whatever we can, but thinking about what happened in Rockville, that it was supposed to be the school that was going to take care of all of this overcrowding, and within a year, it did not. And then what happened is that there was a lot of conversations of going back to the drawing board to rezone. And the last thing I want to do to save $15 million to go from 1,500 to 2,500 is that we do this small school, and then within a year or two, they're already at capacity and they're overcrowded, and then we're having to go back. So I think before we make it, my opinion, I'm just one vote, that before we go into thinking about what the size of a high school is, to look into the area of where that's going and the growth, because I know we have one property that we're looking at in Lee Road, but that area of where that school is situated is populated with new development. I mean, there's new development popping up, I feel like almost every week. And so I want to save money, but at the same time, I also want to be conscious of what the rapid growth and that impact, so that we don't, this board, whoever sits in my seat, won't have to come back again and redo what was done, because we're having to bring portables because of what happened, and be caught in a similar situation that happened with Rockville. That's my 2 cents.
You build a school and they're gonna come.
No, exactly.
I was going to say, our issue is it takes schools 3 years to get built from when we start, and then by that point, you're rezoning like we've seen. We tried to rezone and give everybody a heads up, and then development's hit by the time that you get
Mr.
it.
Arby. Yes, Mr. Arby.
One of the things that I do want to address, and I think it hits a little closer with Stewart's Creek in particular, because those are all literally on the same piece of ground, is some of the challenges we get into building the elementary, middle, and high all together, and the traffic getting in and out, not just for the students and the parents, but also for the people that live in that vicinity, when they're blocked in for over an hour in the morning and the afternoon because traffic's not moving. So if we're going to continue to look at that model, I think the infrastructure is a big portion of that. We have a lot of people, I know in Laverne specifically, I don't know about Murfreesboro, but who are talking a lot about lack of infrastructure, and I just don't want the schools to compound that issue as we go down this. So I think it's important that we keep that in mind too. I will say, close to me, like even just having them not very far apart, like Rock Springs Middle and Rock Springs Elementary. Rock Springs Elementary gets a little bogged down, but I think that's because it's a very large elementary school at this point too. But them being spread apart just a little bit that they are is helpful, because it just helps disperse that traffic. So I think that's something that we also need to look into. And I do have concerns too. I don't know how deep in the weeds we want to get on this conversation. But these older schools, I know Mr. Lee and I were talking, you know, some of them are costing us a decent amount of money just to keep them going in the current state they're in. So I also think it's important that we keep that at the top of the conversation too, because if there's any way to move some of that up in the timeline, I think they would be greatly appreciative. And I've said this for a couple of years now, if we don't start getting at least one school a year going on renovations, we're looking at a really big problem in 10, 20 years, because we have over 50 schools. That means we're not renovating for a whole nother 50 years, that same school, so.
Mr. Vaughn, and then I have some comments.
And she took some of my thunder right there, so I was glad somebody else was thinking of it. But along that line, almost to the point we're building a school a year and we need to renovate a school a year, right? I mean, that's just kind of hand in hand. And so laying this thing out, and the thing about infrastructure, you talk to anybody, you know, sitting in the school zone, the school system complicates traffic, right? Shopping complicates it, school traffic complicates it, so that's another good point. So if you end up, I think, you know, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do we want to advocate for the 3-school complex? If we do, then we've got to be very specific about where we put them, and then the size of them really needs to be limited because of traffic, right? And so if you come up with kind of a nimble way to hit and run, so to speak, and I'm fixing to say something here, I'm going to tell y'all where I'm going, I think right now we need to move McFadden and Thurman Francis and Daniel McKee up right now, postpone the high school and build 2, as you were kind of I think you were heading down that road, Caleb, just a little bit, of these smaller footprint high schools and build 2 of them 2 years from now or something. I don't know that it matters, but I know those 3 schools need some attention. Smyrna West, Daniel McKee, Thurman Francis, and McFadden. That's what started this, and I see my good friend Dr. Blair back there right now. Which made me think about that. So if we could do these renovation projects right now and get on with them, I don't want to take this away from Trey right now. He may have his heart set on building a high school right now, but getting those renovation projects done and then maybe postponing the high school and building 2 high schools at one time. That's just an idea.
I want to agree with basically what everybody's saying. I'm really proud of the fact that we got it in high gear. They had never done the number of projects that we've done in the last couple of years. After being in quicksand for 2 years and not being told, no, we can't do anything now, we hit the ground running. That's the new normal. What we're doing now, it hasn't slowed down. The growth is still coming, but we've got to take care of our older schools too. I would say, not only do I want us to go ahead, and I'm okay with postponing a high school for right now and going ahead, I know we can do these at the same time. We don't need to do one at a time. We can do a couple of these and start them just like we proved we can do that. We basically started Smyrna, Riverdale, and Oakland at the same time. And then we've got Laverne going now. So we can do this, and that's what I would like to do. But I would also, when it comes to Thurman Francis, I have talked about us having another magnet school that's high school. I think now is the time to go ahead and expand it and make it through the high school, because we don't have a fine arts magnet high school.
Ms. Maxwell, I'm sorry, I think we're done.
You're after. Okay, go
sorry.
ahead.
Oh, well, McFadden is at the bottom over here. Can we, if the board is in agreement to postpone, we go ahead and buy the land and on leave property. And if we're going to postpone moving into building a high school and moving into renovating the older schools, then can we bump up McFadden as well? At least start the process of,
I haven't forgotten
with that.
But they did.
What would that look like if we were going to do that along with all the other schools? With Smyrna, Daniel McKee, Smyrna West, and Thurman Francis, because we have McFadden tentatively slated to open in 29.
McFadden definitely needs attention. The timeline for McFadden is going to take longer because it's in the city limits. You're also dealing with historic issues. The other part, you're looking almost like we renovated John Coleman and rebuilt, so we're gonna have to, those students have to have somewhere to go. So we'll have to start building behind it, so we need to acquire property first. I'm concerned about the traffic study that may happen there because of all the developments the city of Murfreesboro is doing right there. And by McFadden and that whole just right across the railroad tracks, I would definitely want to do our fair share, but I don't believe it's the school, and it's not the school system's responsibility to pay for the city of Murfreesboro's infrastructure around that site either. And so that is not on their radar right now about McFadden. So I need to have some conversations with the city before that gets on their radar.
Okay, so to that point, where you're saying about buying property, so what if we were to start the process of buying the properties so that when we're ready to build, we're not hanging on and trying to get the properties? If the holdup is partly because we need to buy this property, can we start that process? And so this past academic year, we were all of the board members, not minus Dan and Butch, because they were not, Mr. Vaughn and Mr. Vaught, because they were not on the board. We were invited to their PTO presentation, and they had a presentation of what potentially could look like if they were to buy the properties and how they can have expansion, grow, and increase the capacity, so it won't be just at 240 kids. There's actually potential where they can grow and add more seats, and so there's a lot more competition for kids to want to come to a school that is a magnet school. So if the holdup is the buying these properties, because it'll take a while, can we, if on Thursday, I don't know what the motions are gonna be, but on Thursday, could we do a motion where we can start that process along with this 5-year plan, or?
Yeah, I think you could do a motion to go into discuss with those tenants, because you have tenants, you have lease, you don't know when the lease is gonna be up, so there's.
I would like to do that. I would like to make a motion on Thursday, if the board pleases, to authorize Mr. Reed to go in, talking to those property owners that are in the house in front of the school, so we can at least get the ball rolling on that. And then the board, we can discuss and prioritize which of the older schools we can potentially renovate as we're trying to get the properties off the ground, and then, because we're gonna need land to expand that school.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Tidwell, then Ms. Darby, and then Mr. Vaughn.
Well, there's a lot of discussion around this, and I think that's a good thing. I think that you can see how seriously every board member is taking this, and we're looking at all the options. And we're removing portables from the county for the first time, so we are making progress. On that note, I agree with the discussions here about renovating our old schools and where these schools should fit. I think Michael Smith's probably having a heart attack right now if he's listening in to us trying to move all of these
Guaranteed.
to the front of the list. So we may end up having to do some kind of priority or looking at the data and what the data supports as our need. I know we've talked about our alternative schools, Dana Key, Smyrna West. They haven't been addressed in, 20 years, and yet our growth has been exponential since then. So, I mean, it's hard to see those being moved much. As far as delaying the high school, I think that is going to be a little bit of a challenge, simply because of the growth that we're having and how long it takes to build a high school. So it's a little bit different than what we see with a middle school or an elementary school as far as the timelines. So we don't want to get, if we were to delay it, we don't want to get into a position to where we needed it, had the opportunity to build it, and moving up some of these other options cause even a greater hardship back on the high school level. So I'm very curious to see where the forecasted enrollment is potentially, what that split smaller high school. When I say smaller high schools, I mean, we're thinking of a smaller number. I still think we're above 1,000 at least, maybe 1,200. Still possibly maybe with a little bit larger core, maybe not the 2,500 core on the smaller high schools, but still with a core there to expand those as well. But not, I'm just not for leaving the high school portion. We know that the elementary school needed help. We've done that. we've seen what that has done for our capacity. It's been great with the redistrict. We know what the middle school is going to do whenever it comes in, how it's going to help with our capacity. I don't think delaying the high school is in our best benefit 2 to 3 years. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to forecast, right? We're trying to see what it's going to look like 3 years from now. I don't think it's in our best benefit to do that. And that's, just my opinion, but I'd love to see what the numbers look like and what's possible and what's not.
Ms. Darby?
Mr. Lee, the figures that you have on here for McFadden, for the rebuild, does that include the purchase of any of those properties, like just a general, so it would be plus whatever that is?
These are budgetary numbers based on a replacement for the building. It doesn't take into account at this time, because we don't know land or how much additional is going to be needed for traffic, what the city's going to request that to look like.
Can you, out of the 4 schools that are listed here, in terms of how desperately they're needing a rebuild, in conjunction with how much money keeping up with them is costing, what order would you put these 4 in?
They're the top 4.
Right, but what order in those 4, like if we had to split them up and do like 2 1 year and 2 another year, which ones would have those top priority spots?
Hard to see. We've poured the most money into McFadden over the last 5 to 7 years. We have poured money in it.
You want to think on it?
You on camera?
I got a different idea than what, yeah, I'll think on it.
Okay. Touching on what you said, Madam Chair, as far as Thurman Francis, I'm a huge, huge advocate for us to have a performing arts, fine arts high school. I am not in favor of adding it onto Thurman Francis, and I will tell you it's because there is not a large enough footprint there to have the athletic facilities that would be needed for a high school. And I don't like the notion of telling arts kids that they can't also be athletes. Dr. Sullivan and I have talked about this. The Performing Arts High School that I attended was a regular high school with a performing arts magnet school kind of built inside of it. So you had to audition for those arts teachers to be accepted into that program. There was a performing arts building that housed the dance classes, the art classes, the theater classes. And I really love that idea because it gives those students the opportunity to still participate in the regular high school activities as well as fine-tune their art skills, which I think is important at a high school level. A lot of those arts kids are looking at taking that on to college potentially, or they're trying to figure out whether they want to go an athletic route or an arts route. There's just kind of a weird connotation sometimes with the magnet school kids that we already hear it with Central, that they're not getting the same facilities that the other high schools are. So we have the number 3 school in the nation as of today. Congratulations, Central. But they don't have the same facilities that the rest of our high schools do. And I don't think that's fair. So nothing against Thurman Francis. It's one of my favorite schools. My kids have all gone there. I just don't think it's an adequate space to turn it into a K-12 school. I would rather see us put an arts magnet, if we build this North End High School right there so that it's close by, and kind of institute it more in that way so that they can participate in all of the other high school activities.
Okay, Butch.
You know, if you go in all these buildings, which I've been in all of them, and I'm sure y'all have too, the building is probably in the worst shape of them all is McFadden. And Mr. Lee said, you know, they've been throwing money in there, and it's what you call throwing good money after bad. And I don't know, that building needs more help than anything. if I went over to see Mr. Blair and he carried me down in the basement, I'd be scared to death that sucker'd fall in. Because it really needs to be replaced. And personally, I'd like to see it moved up above all the rest of these. All the rest of them can probably last 5 more years. I'm not sure McFadden will. I mean, it's really that's the reason we had to put so much money into it, I guess. But, you're talking about schools and getting the same type of facilities and everything, but Central Magnet School, if you're looking at comparable facilities with high schools, they're in need of another gym. I don't know how they do all they do with just that one gym, but there's a lot of things that need to be done there. Of course, we got a little bit of room to do that with, and need to look at that too. But I don't see him pushing any of this back. I think it's just something. In order for us to catch up, we're going to have to keep going. We put our foot on the gas and just keep going, because we're behind now building schools, and we're not going to catch up by putting things off.
Ms. Sharp and then Mr. Tittle.
Okay, y'all put the sharp objects away. I'm going to suggest something out of the box here. Mr. Lee and I were talking earlier, since Holloway is not full, and we've got all the things that we have to deal with the city, and y'all know what we have to deal with. My thought would be if we could move McFadden to Holloway and maybe put some portables there to supplement, and that way we could just haze McFadden and do it all at the same time, and that way it would probably shorten the building program, because we wouldn't have the other school to be in the way and everything. Yes, on a temporary basis until the school is built. Since Holloway is not full, maybe we could move it. He's not listening. Maybe he's not. He's probably making notes. But I think that's something, and I think maybe the historical and some of the other people that we're going to have to deal with in dealing with building at McFadden, I think that might help, because it would shorten that window of having a mess in traffic and all of that stuff over there. So that's just something out of the box that Mr. Lee and I were talking about earlier.
Who was, I think it was Tittle.
Interesting suggestion. Hadn't heard that. Trey, I just wanted to open the floor up. I heard you start to say something that you thought a little bit different, and we're all just talking opinions here, but you have the most knowledge and background, so I'd like to get your thoughts, if you feel comfortable sharing.
I've been doing this a long time here, and I've dealt with a lot of county commissions. When you start talking to high school, you're talking 2 years. And if we start now, we're right at 3. I don't see us as a district with the growth that I know is here now, and I'm not talking about anything that's not on the board or anything that's not in planning at this time. And I realize we could be looking at, I'm going to use the term slowdown. Fortunately, Rutherford County has always, in the last 15 years, and Mr. Vaught, you correct me if you disagree, we've weathered the storm a little better than the balance of our state. We may go flat for 6 months or a year or 18 months, but we've typically not taken the downturn that the rest of the South has. And I see that. I don't see anything that I see differently coming forward. I say all that to say this. If you look at your high school, unless y'all want to put portables back in Oakland, Riverdale, and Smyrna, and Laverne 2 years from now, I don't see you seeing us being able to put the high school off for 3 years. One of them. I'm not saying both of them, but one of them. And I don't care where you want to put it. That's y'all's decision. you've asked me to kind of step off in this. If you look at the smaller version, which allows us to expand, gives us the core, whether you call it a magnet, whether you have some incorporation that's a little bit different, you take that 138 and you cut it in half. Because that's what your expenditure is going to roughly be per year. So we're looking at, and I'm going to use the round term, 70 million. That's a new elementary, a new middle school. Close. County can, in the past, has been able to swallow that kind of money. You start high school now. Pick one of these three. I don't care. McFadden. It's going to be your larger chunk. It's going to be your heaviest hitter. You can take Daniel McKee and Smyrna West and add them together, and you're pretty close to McFadden. Attack the high school. Now, attack either two, Smyrna West, Daniel McKee, Thurman Francis, McFadden. I don't care what combination, because they're all in need. I'm not going to point. I've dealt with all of them. Right now, I can, now that I have gotten sewer to Daniel McKee, and it doesn't, I have the kids can't use the restroom every time it rains. They can do that now that we've got sewer there. I'm a little more comfortable. Neither one of them have kitchens. They can't, that we satellite food in. So we're going to continue to do that. Pick one. So if y'all want McFadden first, that's fine. But you put McFadden with year one of the high school, and you pick either one or the other or both, because Thurman Francis is going to be a little more expensive unless we think outside the box and look at what, maybe we do add another 2 or 3, 4 million to this 1,500 to make it more magnet, to give it a few more things and make the magnet high school at Rocky Ford. I mean, it's an idea to think about. But you take the high school, stretch it over 2 years, you put 1 or 2 projects the first year and 1 or 2 the next. And that keeps you in that $100 million range, which is something in the past the county's been able to do. But I don't see us, if we put off the high school, I'm going to go fight the city to let them keep us, I'll spit it out. Let them allow us to keep the portables at Oakland and Riverdale, because we're going to start needing them. And the portables that I've moved at Smyrna, I'm going to be right back next year or the next, moving them back. Beyond that, you go back to the high school, the next, and then at that point you decide 3 years from now, do we still need that next high school? You leave it on there. You can use the same footprint. If we look at designing what we've used for the last 20 years, our elementaries, our middles, and our highs have been prototypes, except for the last couple that we built. We built a couple of new prototypes, the elementary and the middle. We can use those again. We can go forward with those. We've got something in our arsenal that we can go back and reuse. And in 3 years, you revisit. Started today, they're 18 months away from houses coming online. That buys us that 2 to 3 years, and then at that point, you look at, do I need a high school? Do I need a middle school? And you still probably got one of these smaller projects that's sitting out there that you do, if nothing else. You've asked me, that's my 2 cents.
I appreciate that feedback. Yeah, and I still think we're going to need, again, focusing on the numbers, still think we're going to need, if we split this high school, one on the south end and one on the north end, I don't think it's possible, judging from all the numbers we've seen, to either not build a huge high school or a larger high school or split these two. I'm not advocating that we just build one or the other, just to be clear. But I do got one more follow-up question about McFadden. So obviously we've I think everybody got emails today about McFadden and some of the conditions there in the HVAC. Well, you made a statement that we've been pouring money into McFadden. So my follow-up question to that is, does that mean it is in better shape than the other ones on this list at this point, or are you saying it's still a money pit?
Well, when I say we've been pouring money in it, Dr. Blair can correct me, I'll be off a couple of years, but I'm not going to be off in the last 18 years. We've put new windows in it that leak. We fought the brick that still continues. We've got it in pretty good shape now, but we still have been fighting it for the last few years. We've still got a few walls at Central Magnet that leak, and it's because of the type of construction. We've sprayed sealer on them, and the ultimate repair is hundreds of thousands of dollars to cut the mortar out and re-tuck point them. That's how you fix it. Roof, HVAC, all of these things have been put in, but what gets lost, and I was trying to get the age right, we're 12 to 15 years on his new HVAC system. So his HVAC system is no longer new. We have, and I'm sorry.
Go for it. No, you're right.
You asked, I answered Dr. Sullivan's question today, what does our HVAC systems look like? There's a lot of talk about that. We have 33 HVAC systems in our system that are over 12 to 15 years old. All of them are at or beyond replacement. I've got some that are 20. And if you remember the report that the guys did for us in 2021, they told us then, we don't know how y'all kept this stuff running. And I'm sorry, guys, we're still keeping them running, and we're gonna have to keep them running for a while longer, and I'm running out of rabbits to pull out of my hat. I say all that to say this, we don't have anything new other than our new facilities, and if you want to think about it, I had a gentleman tell me the other day, Siegel High School is one of our new high schools. They're 20 years old. They're not new anymore. That's, and I'm not pointing a finger or saying anything. When I say we're pouring money in them, when you've got a building, McFadden, I don't want to cheat it, now it's late in the days. Original building was built in 1938. 55, 65, and 78. That's when it burned, rebuilt, added on, whatever. Central Magnet School, 1948. Christiana Elementary, 1948. Daniel McKee, 1950. Holloway High School, 1959. Simon Springs, we were all there recently, 1963. Just said McFadden. Smyrna Middle School, which was Smyrna High School, 1961. Smyrna Primary, 1963. Smyrna West, 1950. Thurman Francis Arts Academy, 1963. Been asked by a lot of people, give me your top three. I'm not Solomon, and I've said this before, it's very difficult to split that baby. And I'm a Smyrna boy, but it's hard. I look at this as a district, that's my job. So, I'm sorry, I got off on
Thank you for that feedback.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Maxwell?
Let me go here real quick. Okay. Ms. Sharp and then Mr. Vaughn. Okay, Sharp, then Vaughn. At this point, I can't remember, so go ahead.
All right, observation, and forgive me, I didn't really mean about putting the high school off. What I meant to say was, can we move the small projects on up, time frame wise? I concur, I understand the numbers with the high school. I kind of like what Katie said, you know, we could take the design, if we get in agreement here to build two high schools, that maybe we could design part of the north high school, a third of it as an arts academy. I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. You attended one that had a school within a school. I think that's what you're saying. So that could be a great possibility. So we need to get on with it. I know McFadden has been, both my sons went there and we patched back then. We're still patching, and at some point in time. And the observation I would give everybody is this: you've seen a lot of, the real estate business has been pretty good for 3 years here. All these investors came from out of town, and essentially what they have done is bought 20, 25-year-old houses, come in, put new roofs, new cabinets, new bathrooms, new flooring, new light fixtures, new central heat and air unit, and the houses are 20 years old. And so they've made them modern, and they've flipped them, and they've made money. And essentially, that's what we have to do in the school business, is that these buildings, when they get some age on them, I mean, your average central heat and air unit is 15, 18 years old. Some of you've heard me say this. I've got about 50 rental houses right now. We buy 3 units a year. I just budget that. And so there's 3 or 4 roofs a year. And so I know those things, and I know Trey knows those things, but the average taxpayer, the average homeowner may not understand that from this large of system, 52 schools. Hey, odds are you got 3 or 4 central heating air units are going to be out every year, right? Just in sheer numbers, the luck of the draw. So anyway, that my intention would keep on with the high school, but let's see if we can't get on with McFadden and maybe one of these other ones, Daniel McKee or something, next year or this year, start this year. What would it look like if we asked Trey to bring it back, you bring it back next month, and let's kind of what do we need to do to get it, to push it along? I know we've gotten to this point, we've got the 3 additions done, essentially with Riverdale, Oakland, and Smyrna, but let's go on. What's the next step, and let's keep pushing.
Go ahead.
I think the next step, I think Mrs. Rosales' suggested motion is perfectly fine, because before we know what we can do with McFadden, we need to go ahead and acquire those properties. So to authorize Mr. Reed to go ahead and contact who the owners are, I think then I would wait until our enrollment numbers come back more towards October, because I'm going to go over enrollment here in just a little while. We're following the same trend we did last year, starting off kind of flat, and then September, October, we blew up. And so one year we used RSP and they used September's numbers, and then we grew like 400 kids the next month. And so I don't know if that's the people that move here, and their districts are usually starting after Labor Day, and that's what the big growth is. And so I would hate to develop a plan and then have a ton more kids move in that I don't know about. That's kind of what
We're going to discuss this at our retreat as well. This is going to be a big portion of that. Ms. Sharp. And then,
Sorry, Ms. Maxwell. Okay, so this is my last comment about this. So to Trey Lee's point about the need for the high school, if we remember correctly, and the trend and the growth and how with the buildings that we have to hold all these kids that are coming and having seats available, even with this rezoning within the high school, it showed that, I think it was either year 28, 29, we will be at capacity with, even at Siegel High School, and that we will desperately need a high school within that Stewart's Creek zone area. And then it also talked about how within 5 years, we will need another high school within close to the Riverdale side area, Christiana, because of the growth. So I will agree that we will need to move forward with a high school on the north end. That's why we have the lead property. Hopefully it works for that. But I will also like to, and I'm just one vote, what to advocate is to add an older school to renovate, and if we can look into bumping up McFadden by starting with the process of buying the property so that we can start with renovations, and then we can also prioritize those older schools and how they rank in priority list. So that's my 2 cents for that.
I would say, one thing I think that helped us in the past is once we voted and we got a plan together, we stuck together and we stuck to that plan. And yes, we were a little pushy. I was a little pushy, but you have to. But I think that we have a very good relationship with the county commission. And I know we're always going to have new ones coming in. I'm losing probably 2 of mine. But I think if we just stay determined, we can do this, because we're not going to be able to do 1 or 2. She's right, Ms. Rosales is right, and Mr. Vaughn is right. We're going to have to do multiple projects at one time. And so I think that we can get this done. We just need to make sure that we all are working as one voice as a board. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to echo that. So for looking at our 5-year plan, whatever we decide, regardless of whatever the majority of the board vote is, that needs to be what the board's conversation is, because again, moving into a re-election year, anything is going to be tough. But if we're all unified, then it's going to be much easier for me to push that. And it's also going to be much easier to push 2 smaller high schools that represent the entire county during an election year than it would be 1 smaller or bigger high school in only 1 area. It's a lot easier to get the entire commission support if everybody's being.
Like we did when we said Oakland and Riverdale, we're helping 2 areas, not just 1. Yes, Ms. Sharp, and then Mr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing The only problem that, and I agree with everything, the only problem is we still need another high school in Laverne, because the Lee Road is not going to address the problems that we have in Laverne. So that's really a third one, it's really a third high school if you look at it, because Laverne is already at capacity, and even with the annex, we've got to have something there, and right there with Smyrna and everything, because Lee Road is going to take care of all that property that's coming, the people that are coming over on the west side of the interstate, and they're coming. It's going to be huge. That Lee Road is not going to do anything for Laverne. They're not going to move anybody from Laverne over to that area. And with Stewart's Creek and everything already been full, we really need a high school. We do need one on the north end and the south end, but Laverne has got to have one as well.
Yes. Mr. Todd, go ahead.
So just to consolidate everything that we've talked about here, it seems like the board is considering high school, splitting this larger high school into two high schools, one on the north end, one down near Plainview, and then additionally, potentially moving up one of these items. That seems like McFadden is holding the reins here, but moving up one of these if we can, because this is on, we're having a vote on Thursday, right? No, we're just.
No, we're not
just
voting. No, this is just
Okay.
discussion.
Well, then, on that note, that still seems like the direction, so we can start getting ideas about that. But I would like to see the difference between acquiring properties. I know that I reached out to Trey earlier today about McFadden and about what those properties would cost in comparison to Ms. Sharp's idea of utilizing Holloway and what that would look like. That's something that I heard for the first time tonight. It's a unique idea. I'd love to see what the differences are, to see if there's some savings there. It sounds like, unfortunately, this is within Murfreesboro City's district, so there's going to be some challenging items there already. The less challenging we have, likely the less delays, the less we have to fight with the city. So let's try to make that as easy as possible.
Ms. Maxwell?
Yes, go ahead.
Dr. Sullivan, can we modify the agenda, or is it too late to add the motion to authorize Mr. Reed to move forward with acquiring the properties on
I would
McFadden?
defer officially to Mr. Reed, but since it's being discussed during a work session, I don't see any reason that it couldn't be added to the agenda.
Yeah, can we add that to agenda so that it can be a board agenda item that we can vote on Thursday and go ahead and start that process? That'd be great. Thank you.
I will tell you, have you seen, Mr. Lee, have you seen the mock-up that McFadden PTO showed us? Okay. I'd like you to see it. I have, a lot of you know, my husband is on city council, so I have kind of, really? I've kind of talked about this behind the scenes, and the houses are not that expensive. And I think one owner has two of them. And basically, they're looking at flipping the front to what is now the back. And it does follow along with, you know, we are going to need the city's help, you know, but I do believe this does follow with what they're trying to do and the beautification of that area and the downtown project there where they're daylighting the old stream. So I do think that they could be actually a better partner, and I'm very optimistic, I always am.
Ms.
But,
Maxwell?
yes, Ms.
The
Rosales.
principal is here, Mr. Blair, and I'd asked him earlier if he could resend those plans to everyone on the board. So if they can send it to Mr. Lee and Dr. Sullivan, that'd be great, because they had that meeting. And I will request if the PTO, can have another meeting and invite the board members to talk about it as well. That'd be amazing. That'd be great. I will appreciate that. I don't know if there'll be the board members pulled, but it'd be great to have that conversation.
Yes, Mr.
Well, it sounds like we're all pretty open-minded to looking at everything, so we're having a fall retreat. So it appears to me that school construction and renovation is going to be the topic. By that time, will you have updated enrollment numbers? Can we also ask for, and I don't know how to do this other than the consultant, you know, looking at where the numbers are and say, okay, if you had a location here what the zoning would be. Can we kind of play with that kind of stuff
He's
at
got
the
them
retreat?
already. We've worked on it a little bit last year, and I meet with him again tomorrow, so, yes.
All right, because again, I think I mentioned this earlier, there are several tracts of land that are going to come up for sale in the next couple of years for estate purposes, and so kind of knowing that on the front end, it may give us or at least give y'all the information to make some type of decision.
Mr.
You know, going back to the McFadden situation, you know, we're looking at those houses, I think, to the east of them. I think that's where you're talking about. Another option, you know, I think a lot of the people buy those houses and then they get pretty proud of them real quick. And, you know, another option to look at is right beside there's the recreation department has that building there. And it may be a possibility we could talk to the city of Murfreesboro and see if we couldn't work out some kind of arrangement or deal or whatever you want to call it about maybe flipping that building and utilizing that area there. So it's just, I don't know, it's just thoughts.
Funny you should say that. I've actually approached them about that, but yeah, that would be, I think, a good idea too. I want to ask you one more question about the alternative schools. The price for redoing them, obviously they're not as large, so it's not as high. Are we still looking at possibly doing that ourselves? That would not be outside of them, the county having to go, commission having to go get a bond for that, or is that still?
They would, no, we'd have to get a bond for that much.
Okay.
For 21.5 million, we would, for sure.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Sharp.
Okay, since we're going to talk about the alternative schools, they're really, to me, they're really small compared to some of the other buildings that we've built. And if we have the land there, we need to think about, since if we're going to build there, we need to think about what other opportunities we could put on those locations and not just build to the same size that we had.
Oh,
We're for sure going to add seats to alternative school, but I agree, what other options we need, yes.
Yeah, you know, maybe administrative or, you know, somehow, I don't know, I don't really know how much land we have.
Go, yes, Ms. Sharp.
Those schools right now are about 10 to 12,000 square feet. These budgets are for 25,000. So it's the double.
Okay. Do we have land to put maybe a
Yes,
football
and they can
field or
stay in
something?
service.
So we could,
We may have to relocate some portables, but we can still probably keep them there while we build.
Are we thinking about not just increasing the size and having more classroom space, but maybe adding a gym to each of them?
You would be pushing it probably,
Cost would increase.
but we could maybe we can look at it, but it's not included in the budget.
Okay. I definitely would like to
But
look at
budgets are, you tell me what you want and I'll give you a budget for it.
in my head, I have like, and I can't remember what Smyrna West, I've been out there before, but Daniel McKee, I know what that footprint looks like. But I was hoping that we could like separate the middle school from the high school and maybe go up, go two-story
It'll
on
be
the
two,
high school.
yeah, it's two, that's what we discussed.
Okay.
Just mention that, let me throw a little monkey wrench in the deal. Years ago, we looked at the alternative school situation, and my recommendation at that time, Mr. Gill was the superintendent, we talked about maybe making the intermediate alternative school at Holloway and put the frequent flyers and the guys that earned their stripes at the hardcore ones at Daniel McKee. And the intermediate alternative school would be for things that are non-weapon or non-drugs. And therefore, you know, we don't utilize, Holloway is not near full. And I think there's plenty of room there to add the intermediate alternative school, which would take the load off Daniel McKee. And I think it would be great for the alternative schools to separate the frequent flyers and the guys that earn their stripes compared to the people that just there for other reasons. I mean, it's just an option.
I understand what you're saying, and I think that concept of separating the two. However, I do feel like Holloway serves a purpose, and I really like the fact that we've had that choice school for some of these kids, and it's been the right call for a lot of them who were drowning in our big, larger schools.
Yeah, I'm not talking about eliminating Holloway, I'm talking about, they don't have very many students compared to the area they got, and I think you would have room to add that intermediate alternative school to part of
Oh, so just to put
Holloway.
it like a part of it?
Both of them.
Okay. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yeah. Yes, Ms. Darby.
just to touch on Holloway, since it was brought up, I think I've talked to you about this before, Dr. Sullivan. One of the things I'd really love to see us do is really kind of put a spotlight on Holloway. I don't know about the rest of you, but my experience has been that most people don't know it exists, and those that do know it exists have a misperception of what it is. So I think we could do a much better job if we want more students in that building of exposing the district to what that school is and what it provides, and kind of, with our marketing team, kind of getting some more information out to the district about that school. Because I've known several parents that either didn't know it existed or their perception of it wasn't what the school actually is. So if we need more students in that building, I'd love to see us work with marketing and maybe put something together to just try and raise awareness of that school, because they really do some amazing things, and they provide an environment that a lot of our students, to what you just said, really truly need. I just think the majority of our district is unaware.
I agree. We need to add more seats to the school.
Absolutely. Yes, Ms. Sharp.
I agree with you, Claire. Holloway's special, and I think McFadden is more in line with what they're doing at Holloway. We've all been out there every year in January for lunch and see the students that Holloway takes care of, and it's a life-saving school, and I would like to see us continue that.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr.
Just a timeline, so we have our November 4th is our fall retreat, and then we are scheduled to have our middle school rezoning meeting on November 6th. The decision does not have to be made for rezoning on November 6th, it's just the presentation, and then we would need to do a decision, just like we did with high schools, in the December board meetings. But that November 6th, those maps are already published. We're going to have to do some modifications just based on growth. I'll give you an example. Rockville Middle grew 100 kids this year, and so that's tough. And we're going to have to do some things with Oakland, Siegel, just a couple shifts, but I don't expect large-scale changes from what we've already looked at.
Dr. Sullivan, Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms.
Thank you, sorry. Talking about timeline, so I heard that if we were going to build a new high school, that we will need to start the design November 25th. So when will we need to make a decision as a board on this 5-year plan so that the high school can begin? When will we need to, I know everyone talked about, we're going to discuss this in the November meeting, in the fall retreat that takes place in November. So when do we need to make a decision in November so that Trey Lee can start the process of that design?
Probably October, but the reality is there's no funding available for the design, so we're going to have to ask the commission to pay for the design for this anyways.
So when do you need to go before the county commissioners to ask for the money for that design?
October.
So then technically, we need to make a decision before. Because if we don't have a 5-year plan, how are we going to authorize you to go before the county commissioners to ask for the design? In order for us to meet that deadline of having a new high school in 28, that's when.
If I'm speaking bluntly, I cannot imagine we have a high school ready by August of 28. To me, it's August of 29. It's just, that's the reality. If we were planning on opening a high school in 28, we probably needed to start last year. And that.
Oh,
we
well,
just-
I'm going by what's written here.
Yeah, and we changed this to try to get it open by August of
Okay,
28.
so I guess my question is, when do you need the board to make a decision so that you can
If
be
we want
authorized?
to try to operate it, get it open by August of 28, I need to go to them in November at the very latest.
So when does the board needs to make a
October.
decision? October. So technically, we won't be able to talk about this during the fall, during the break.
So if we want to move our fall retreat, we can move our fall retreat.
I'm in favor of
That was the
that.
suggestion I was about to make.
Yeah, I'm in favor of moving our fall break,
But
our,
we're not going to have all of our enrollment numbers back yet. So that's,
can we have estimates at least?
yeah, we'll have some
I think we
estimates,
can
yes.
have at least estimates, right?
Trying to get the meeting dates.
November 4th, 9 to 30.
That's, but when do we meet back here?
Which month?
We meet October 30th.
Yes.
We meet October 30th, so it'd be a week later, it'd be 10 days later. You just have to move it on pretty fast. We'd have to vote on it in November, that first meeting in November, right?
We could, yeah.
We can do it then and just
Okay.
push it on.
So that will give Dr. Sullivan time to go before the county commissioners to ask for that money,
I
if
think
we
you
do it in
find-
November.
Personally, I think you run it up the flagpole and let them know it's coming.
Yes.
Right.
Right?
That too.
Well, I was being hesitant.
Yeah, but we vote on it and create the plan. You don't want to go in there half-cocked.
So we'll vote on it in November, after the fall break. So after, we meet in the fall, we meet in November 4th, and then the following meeting, it'll be on the agenda for us to vote.
Yeah, it is November 18th and 20th is our November meeting, because you have fall retreat, middle school rezoning, and then TSBA annual conference takes 1 week out.
Yeah.
So we have a meeting scheduled the 18th and 20th.
Okay, so then it'll be on the board agenda for the November 8th, the week of November 18th.
Would it not be better to put it on the October 30th agenda to vote on, so that you have time to get your stuff together for November?
I will miss the health and ed for October by that October 30th meeting because of the way the calendar falls. 'Cause it
Right,
has-
but I just mean if we voted on it on the 30th, then you would know what you had to prepare with. You would have time to get stuff together for the November meeting. I'm worried if we push it to mid-November, you're gonna be scrambling to get it all.
I'll have it ready because that's what I've had to do every other time is our board votes, and then usually like health and ed is waiting on our,
Well, you tell us.
yeah, November 18th and 20th is fine with me.
It is, okay.
I don't, again, my biggest concern is they don't have a way to fund it. They've known it was coming. We have communicated this was coming. So that's, but it's our job to ask.
That's fine, but I think for timelines purposes, we have to make decisions. Because the further we wait and delay, then the further this gets pushed back.
Yeah, the November
So
18th.
that's why I'm saying the urgency of when do we need, the board as a collective will needs to make the decisions.
At the latest, November 18th, 20th. If the board votes on it on the October 28th and 30th, we will have missed the October Health and Ed meeting because it's the 28th. It's the same day as our board meeting. The next session is November 25th for Health and Ed, so we would hit that one, hit the December 4th budget meeting, and the December 11th county commission meeting.
Okay.
So the question is, do you want to back up the board retreat to the first week in October? That's what it sounds like.
First week in October's fall break.
Well, that first when's our first meeting? I get it.
October 14th.
If we had it the 14th, we could get it to health and ed.
Yeah, on the 28th. we
All
could.
right, so when can we do the board retreat before the meeting on the 14th? Everybody look at their calendars.
Well, they have it tentatively for November 4th.
But see, we're missing everything by a month, Francis. That's what I'm trying to do, is back it up a month. But
No,
not,
that sounds
but-
great.
yeah, but not getting everybody's fall break. Y'all not gonna give up your fall break to meet with us. I don't blame you.
Well, we have work session on the 14th.
You want to give up your Saturdays in
Yeah, I
October?
was saying, Saturday, I'm gonna be selfish.
November the 4th.
My Saturdays are spoken for.
We'll have Dawn send an email available.
Oh, you know us auctioneers, we just work one day a week, okay? So that's my day.
I'll have Dawn send an email about
But if
what's
I do what the will of the board is.
September 30th. It's still a Tuesday. It's before fall break.
I'm all good, personally. Ms. Maxwell?
Yes.
I'm good if you want to take a look, instead of being on the spot, if y'all want to
Yeah.
come up with a couple dates, send it out.
Yeah,
I'm good.
and then we'll just vote on
But
it.
bumping it up,
Yeah,
I
bump it
think
up.
we're all
Roll
good.
them out,
Yeah.
and we can take a look at our calendars. I honestly don't have my calendar with me here, and I have a lot of stuff that my husband has penciled in into my calendar. I need to make sure.
Yeah, I get it, yeah.
Yep, that sounds good.
You're,
Apparently it's a joint effort.
It's a family calendar.
Okay. Well, I'm getting, this is kind of exciting. I like this. Yeah, we're getting excited. Okay, so is there any other questions so we can move on?
Let's start all over. No, I'm just joking.
Let's move on to instruction for the rest.
Yeah, that's just a co-op proposal between Oakland Middle and Central Magnet. Has to have board approval before we can
Okay.
enter that.
Next, we've got legal.
This is a transfer student under discipline, so this student has requested to enter Rutherford County Schools from another school system under discipline. The student was remanded for possession of illegal drugs, and Director of Schools recommendations to deny.
Okay. Next, we have got policy adoption, first and final reading.
So this is a request, we noticed it with a couple of our vending machine vendors are no longer wanting to service the schools. And so we have our own CTE programs that are already running it. In board policy, it says that it has to be run by a vending company. And so this request is just to ask for the schools to continue to run these themselves since they're losing their ability. Talked with finance. The big request of finance is to make sure that it still has the accounting, goes through the school books, and that inventory control is kept, because that's the only thing you really want to make sure that you have is some type of inventory
We're
control.
talking about snacks or we're talking about
Yeah,
drinks?
both.
Really?
Yeah, both. It's not everybody. It depends on when somebody's contract is going out. And so,
Especially at the high schools. I always thought it was like a cash cow for them.
I'd like to make a comment on that. I'm telling you, they're gonna be shocked about, one or two things. How much money they're gonna make if you handle it yourself, or how much cheaper you could sell that candy for what they charge it now. So, I mean, it may be a little bit of an effort for somebody, but I'm telling you, it's a little bit, putting a little bit of dollars in the school's pocket to spend on other things.
I'm just
So,
shocked that they're wanting. Did they say why they wanted?
and as you have contracts that come open, you may not get the same benefit that you did previously, whether it's the same in each school's their own. So they may have a different percentage, and it makes more sense for the school to do it themselves. I know that Smyrna and Oakland, don't quote me, but those were the two schools that I know their vending company was interested in selling to them because they were getting out of it. So, and I believe it was those
It was
two.
so good that they even like were willing to sponsor things at the schools and.
Some are.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm
The
just
days
shocked.
of scoreboard, but yeah, those days are over there.
I guess so.
Nobody's
I
giving
guess so.
scoreboards anymore.
And then we've got approval of two.
Yes, and so just request for us to go ahead and do this so that we don't have to wait for two motions so that the CTE programs can go ahead and operate it.
Okay, next we have financial matters.
Yeah, and so this is, first one is benefits and insurance update. So we are looking, open enrollment, of course, will happen in October. We do not need to vote on this on Thursday, but a vote does need to happen by September 11th. There is an increase of 5.6% from the State Department. And so, Jennifer, I'm not meaning to take your thunder. Go ahead and come up. Sorry, no, sorry.
You are good.
Yeah. And we're blessed to have Jennifer. Jennifer was with the county for a while and ran the school systems portion of county insurance. Then you went and worked with, I've gone blank on their name. Gallagher, jeez. The broker, and she's been back with us for over a year. And so this is just kind of an overview of medical plans. And before we start, because this is something we always hear from you guys can see nationwide insurance costs are going up. It's not fun, but costs are going up nationwide. And we always hear educators, rightfully so, say that, the percentage of increase of my health insurance plan is more than the raise that I got. The percentage increases on whatever that you were paying that premium to where your raise is based on what your average salary was. And so it's not true apples to apples when you're comparing those, but I definitely understand, because that's tough when you're like, it went up 5.6% and I got 2.5% raise. So it's tough.
So this year, the state has decided to make some plan changes to kind of bring down the cost. If they didn't do the plan changes, the increase was going to be higher. With that, they have increased what we call the buy-up. So for the bigger networks, the open access for Cigna, the network P for Blue Cross, For employee-only tier and the employee and children tier, it's increased by $15 a month. And then for the other two tiers, $30 per month. And then the next biggest change is going to be on the pharmacy. They are now doing a pharmacy cost share change. The weight loss drugs, which are a big expense for a lot of plans, and then specialty medications, which is their next biggest expense. Currently, depending on what plan an employee is on, it could be a percentage or they could pay a copay. Now it will be a percentage regardless of what plan the employee elects.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I'm sorry to ask, but what does that mean, employee only and employee? And then
So those are two different tiers, and they've got the same increase per month for that bigger network. So if I'm paying 50 for a smaller network, but you want the bigger, they're adding that.
Right, I understand that. Is that supposed to be like employer only and employee, or is it, I guess it's throwing me off the employee only and employee, because to me it means the same thing.
No, it's employee only and then employee and children.
So it depends on which coverage
the
you're
tier.
choosing. Depends on which coverage you're choosing. If you need it just for you, or you and a child, or you and your entire family, this is the wording the state uses for their plans.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a question also.
Yeah.
Members will pay 25% co-insurance for weight loss for all plans. If, do you get 25% discount if you lose weight? No. That would,
I mean, that's a plan.
that kill two birds, one stone.
Yeah. Yeah.
I promise you, boy, there'd be people getting on the scales. Quit eating.
You better go easy down there. Go easy.
That's
It's hard for a Hispanic wants to quit eating to stand.
The bottom portion's big because especially the members will pay 30% for in-network. Right now, it is connected to your out-of-pocket maximum for the year, and there's going to be a new pharmacy out-of-pocket maximum. So it truly is going to matter which plan you get on, because that's a big change.
Yeah. We did have Gallagher look at some different rate options for us. With that, there's some kind of points to keep in mind when you look at it. It is based on a calendar year and not our budget year. The chart that we have is done annually and for the 12-month, but we do deductions tenthly. It is based off a snapshot in time. I gave them a report a few weeks ago of our current enrollments, and then that's what they use to kind of figure out for the next year. It doesn't account for any migration to different plans during annual enrollment. And then they've assumed on retirees that it's certified 30 years or more, because we don't know how many retirees, what their years of service are. We just know how many we have enrolled. These are the options. The very first line is our current, so that's where we're at now. And then it goes down the different employer contribution amounts. If we took 100% of the increase, 75, 50, 25, or if we took none of the increase. And the proportional is doing it exactly as it is done now. For the 2025, we just apply that to 2026.
And let me go over these just real quick so everybody sees, because this is the tough part of the just conversation. We were at 10% of our entire budget went to health insurance 2 years ago. We are trending towards more of 11% already by covering just a small portion of it last year. If you look on the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, seventh column, that is what we are paying as a district. So we've got a $560-something million budget that is not in the deficit. And we are this year already paying $56,987,000 for medical insurance. That is what we have budgeted, is that number. So any of these other increases, we're going to have to find additional revenue sources for. Now, we will get a little bit because of outcome funding. We get about $4 million for outcome funding. But Brian and I use that outcome funding to cover costs that we don't know that exist throughout the year. If we hire teachers on our average is 20-year bachelor's, and somebody comes up with a master's 25, we've got to cover that somewhere. We have a position that needs to be filled that we didn't fill, or sub rates are paid higher. So that $4 million is a kind of a 1%, 0.8% terrifying cushion that we operate on. So there is no budgeted expense for the 175, 50, and even covering 25. I don't think that we need to cover, I don't think it's realistic for us not to cover any of it. And so my recommendation would be we try to cover 25%, and we may have to cut spending later on in the year as we're watching some things to see where we are. I would love to cover all of it, but we do not have $60.8 million to cover medical insurance. And so that's just as you're looking at the cost and what the employer-employee portion is. I know that current administration in Washington talked about trying to get some of these costs down, and I hope that occurs, because there's got to, that's just like we talked about 2 years ago, this isn't sustainable for anybody, not just us, but for anybody.
Ms. Stark.
So are you recommending third column up from the bottom?
Yes. And I just wanted the board to understand that's going to be a push trying to find an extra $1 million. We were notified yesterday that we have about $1 million less in TISA generating. So I'm already at that 4 million. I'm already 2 million out. And so it's.
Can you go back one?
Brian's having a panic attack over here, but.
No, and another consideration is with our paid parental leave.
Great point, yes.
The legislature did not fund the subs that is required for those paid parental leave qualifiers. So we as a district have to pick up that full amount of the subs that's required. And then last year, I think we went over that $200,000 or $300,000 just for subs that we had to pull from our outcomes funding or our growth funding in order to be able to cover those. So that's another consideration that you're going to have to throw in there. That probably will be the same, because we don't know how many paid parental leave qualifiers we're going to have throughout the year.
And just real quick, what the state passed 2 years ago that we pay for teachers and their spouse to be able to take a certain amount of time that's paid. They covered the portion to pay the teacher, the state did. They did not cover the portion to pay for the sub in the classroom. And so we are having to eat that cost of covering the sub in the classroom. And we were trying to figure out this year of what in the world hit us so hard on subs. Why did we go over? And it was paid parental leave, because there's no reimbursement. So.
Mr. Paul.
So we've got a lot of new kids being born in the district.
What do you mean?
Well, you said you had
Yes, we
parental
do.
leave.
Yes, we do.
You must
Yes.
have a lot of babies
Yes.
in the county. I was
Yes.
trying to be a little funny right there.
Yes.
You didn't catch my
I
drift.
didn't, because our kindergarten numbers aren't where I want right now, so I'm like,
Well, they
where's our
will be
kindergarten
six, they
kids?
will be 5 years from now.
Yes.
You gotta
Give it
wait
6
5
years
years.
now.
Right.
Yes.
The question is, this is not exclusive to the district's employees, right? This would be county general
This
also.
is just district employers. County haven't had an increase in a couple of years since we left, which I know that we've talked about. I know that you talked to our finance director about that, the county. I do not know what the county's doing. Do you?
Last I thought was 6%.
So we'll be a little bit less then.
They haven't, see,
That's what they're looking at, is 6%. For each plan, ours is 5% aggregate, theirs is 6% across all.
what are they gonna do?
That makes it easier to swallow when it's theirs compared to
Yeah.
the last couple of years. They haven't had an increase, and that was
So
tough.
what will the county general fund do?
They control they control their funding, and they can add revenue.
Well, I'm just asking, are they gonna pay half of it? They gonna pay a quarter of it? Has anybody heard any rumors?
I don't know. They do have a little bit more options than we do, because they administer their plan. They can pull a different, they can change deductibles, they can change copays, they can change what's covered, what's not. So
Yeah.
even if they say we're covering, they've got a little bit more movement than we do on that.
But it's still a cost. They've got a cost also, so I would be curious as to what the county general fund employees end up with.
I can try to find out before September 11th.
That would be great.
Mr. Vaughn.
Retired years of service is unknown. The last thing out there, that's getting pretty close to home.
It's
good thing you're here.
That's what one thing that, all of us old folks are on fixed income, and I tell you, insurance is a big thing, and I tell you, I have no complaints about our current insurance. I think I don't know of any way it could be any better. But we just can't afford to, on the people that have retired and all, we just can't put that extra financial burden on them because Social Security, a lot of them, just doesn't quite keep up with the cost of living. So, I think that's one thing we definitely need to keep in mind because y'all all be there one of these days, so you'll understand what we're talking about.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Again, I know that's not a fun discussion, but we've got to make a decision. And I know the $1 million is going to be extremely tough to swallow.
Didn't Court say, Mr. Young, on this committee, didn't he say that before we left, that one of the reasons why we left, it was getting almost 17%?
Oh, yeah, some of they were huge.
It was
Yep.
astronomical. We're coming off, it's not great, but we're still, I'm glad we did what we did. I'm glad we went.
I tell you, down the highway, health insurance is going to be a tremendous challenge. Much so is building.
Okay, we're just going to move on now to engineering and construction.
This is a request for Blackman Middle School, their CDC fence request. Principal Jessica Jackson is requesting to install approximately 100 feet of fence to enclose the CDC area. You'll see the anticipated budget for this is $7,830. And engineering has reviewed the request and has no objections. It is coming from the Siegel grant, sorry.
Okay. Number two.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go
Sorry,
ahead, Tom.
Dr. Sullivan?
Yep.
When we are spending grant money, do we have to go out for bid?
You want to, especially.
Through one of our vendors. Typically, it's through one of their vendors. But they have they don't, if it's under 15, they don't have to go out for a bid.
If it's over 15, do
Under.
they? I know, but if it's over 15, do they?
They do. They can get 3 prices.
Okay.
You have 3 actual quotes, and then once you get over 50,000, then it has to go out.
Then you have to go out to public bid.
Okay.
Yep.
Number two.
This is 5405 Lee Property Road Review, so we have all of our reports in for the property at 5405 Lee Road, and so we can, Trey, who's going over these?
Fine.
Okay.
Okay, I've just selected certain pages from the various reports. I'm gonna call it hitting the 20,000-foot level. The first thing you have is the survey. The main thing is to gather from the surveyed acres and the actual survey on the ground's 161.07 acres. The rest, we did some topography that would be useful for us in the future, but we did not, if you'll notice on that front page, and I'm going to try and use this pointer, this area right here, we did not do a complete survey of. It's not needed at this time. That's the hill. Yeah.
How many acres are those in the area that we didn't survey?
Ma'am?
How many acres does that represent the area that we did not survey?
Probably about 45 or 50.
Is there a reason we're not?
Saving money. When there's a potential that we could use that for materials to be used on the site if we were to purchase it. And at that time, we would go back and survey it at that time as part of our construction cost. But there was not a need at this time.
Is that across the street?
No, ma'am.
We didn't buy the property across
It's
the
all
street,
part of
right?
the same property.
Okay, thank you.
There is
Okay.
no property across the street.
Okay, no, that's great. I know that when we were looking at it, there was property on one side and then another property
That
across
was
the
the
street.
property previous to this one.
Okay, perfect. Okay, good.
Yes, ma'am.
Is the 45 to 50 acres on the hill part of the 161?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. The next page that we have is the geotechnical report. It's 68 pages. There's individual reports, but I would refer you to page 2. What I have highlighted, soil test boring location, this is just, there again, general information. The locations for 43 soil test borings identified in borings B1 through B43 were established by overlaying the proposed building locations and boring locations into Google Earth, transferring the data into commercial-grade handheld GPS systems, which were used to drill the holes in the field. We also drilled 22 test holes through the woods that we did not survey. There is an actual report attached to that for each one of these holes. We drill down to determine the dirt and when we hit rock, which is fairly typical. The next thing is on page 3, site conditions. Bedrock underlying the site contains carbonate rock, which is what we call limestone, typical for this area. Test boring drilled at the site did not encounter open voids or other signs of incipient sinkhole conditions. They have reviewed the USGS quadrangle map for this area. The map does not show a pattern of closed depressions that would indicate past sinkhole activity in the near proximity of this site. Therefore, it is the opinion that the proposed construction will generally not increase the risk of sinkhole development. That's just standard things. Residual materials, Carter's limestone, Lebanon limestone, and the Ridley limestone formation. That's pretty much the vast majority of Rutherford County. So that's just highlights of didn't find anything we didn't expect to. Average depth to rock is anywhere from 2 feet to 14 feet. Site assessment, which is on page 5.2, based on the subsurface conditions encountered during this exploration, the subject site is adaptable for the planned construction. Any questions on the GEO report? There again, you can read all about each exciting every test hole. If you have any questions between now and Thursday, be sure and let me know. Phase 1 environmental is our next test. And it is to determine if we have anything out there that could be a potential hazard. Page 1 in the executive summary, the evidence, what they did, and this is not unusual for a farm that's been in the farming community since 1900. They did find evidence of vehicular or tractor repair on the ground surface in one of the barns. I don't think that's anything that would be uncommon in any barn that we would find in the area, that they would find some diesel fuel, some brake pads, some old oil. Ma'am? I didn't hear the question.
Didn't we have a dump truck in Laverne that wasn't there? Maybe not our property, but there was one found.
Found, yes, yes. There's no, what's called VEC, that's any chemical releases or large chemical spills that have happened in the area. One thing that they did, you'll notice if you read through this report, they talk about HMAs, which is hazardous material assessment, based on the fact that the home that's on this property was built in 1900, and the fact that they found this tractor repair going on in the barn. They did recommend that we have an HMA done, which we have. I don't have the report for you to review. I have the executive summary. Basically what it says, there's no asbestos in the house. There is some lead paint on the building, and that there, some as old asbestos brake pads and a little bit of fuel around the barn. Other than that, nothing of any substance to note. Phase 1. They talk about on page 2, the goal of the phase 1 is to identify pursuant recognized environmental conditions in connection with the subject property. Just said we, other than the barn, which if you go to page 18, the conclusion, based on the results of the phase 1 ESA, the historical vehicle and or tractor repair operations, subject needs to be reviewed, and there's no VECs for this property, meaning we're pretty clear from an environmental standpoint. Any questions on the Phase 1 environmental? Next, we have the jurisdictional water determination report. Going to go to page 1. In the executive summary, they tell you about the property, a little bit about what they see. The creek we knew about. We'll get to some pictures here in a minute. The hillside's got some natural drainages, 2 small ponds, and that's about it. And it's recommended that the project be referred for reference to the jurisdictional water report be reviewed by the appropriate regulatory agency, and a concurrence letter be acquired from that agency. That's TDEC and the Corps of Engineers, and I have started that process. And basically, all that means is they read the report, review the findings from this report, and they either concur with it and issue us a letter, or they don't, and they come back with something they see that was incorrect in the report. I don't see that happening for us. If you look at page 4, there's some pictures of what they find. That's Olive Branch. That's the stream that traverses through the property. It's pretty much a rock bottom. Right now, there's not much water in it. There's 3 or 4, 5 pages of different things. The main page, what do you have next, John? I got lost. Make sure, keep going. Should be 1.18. Determination. Yeah, that should be the last page. Yep. 2 streams, 4 wetland areas, 2 ponds, 4 wet weather conveyances were identified on the property. The main thing for us, if you'll remember from Plainview, we found some additional wetlands that we were unable to use. The purpose of this was to determine that up front. Based on everything they found, we're just a hair over 1 acre, but it's scattered out. In our construction reports, we're allowed to disturb up to a ½ acre, so if there's anything that we had to deal with TDEC on, at the most it would be a ½ an acre. Basically, the property's free and clear from any jurisdictional waters other than the creek. And we knew the creek was there. We discussed building a box culvert or a bridge over it when we looked at it to begin with. So no surprises in the jurisdictional water report.
Mr. Lee,
Yes, sir.
I don't know, some like in the middle, we looked at having supply water for the athletic fields, and it was going to cost us a fortune. We decided to dig a well, and it waters all the athletic fields there at the middle school. This seems like everything points to having a good water source at the water table, which I would think wells would be pretty a given in this area. Do y'all utilize that very often to take care of the water in the fields?
When we have a sustainable, predictable groundwater table, yes, sir, we do. We have a well at Stewart's Creek and it does about half the fields. They get enough flow to do half the fields, and we buy the water for the other half.
Yeah, or it'd be nice if it could water them all.
They don't have enough pressure. That becomes the problem. There's so many wells around now that the water table is there, but the pressure is not. So we typically can determine that when we do our geothermal wells. That helps us determine what the depth of the water is and what our pressure looks like. It helps us determine whether or not a well would work for us for athletic fields or not. But we do look at that.
Mr. Lee, I'm going to be jumping ahead here. I'm on the last page of Figure 2, the site detail map. How much, you mentioned that we can disturb up to a ½ acre, and I'm seeing, pond 1, pond 2, some wetland areas. How much non-usable space are we looking at, including the creek crossing here? On each side, is there like a little small floodplain that we're not able to?
The creek itself which we can't get in, and the floodplain is probably about 8 to 10 acres.
Okay.
And then if don't use the acreage in the front between the creek and the road for building something, there's probably 5 to 7 acres there. And then the wetlands is 1 acre if you add them all together.
And the
And
position,
it's usable, we just don't have it in our current layout. But we don't, if we needed to use some of that land in the front of the creek, we can, yes.
that's the question I was going for. The places where the wetlands are, we can still disturb it and use it if we need to. It's not preventing us from
Correct.
future
It just
use.
adds a little bit of cost, but at a half an acre, it's very minimal,
Yeah, very good.
very minimal.
Any other questions?
Ms.
Mr.
Maxwell,
Fellows?
have you gone through all of the reports you wanted to go through?
No, ma'am. I have
Oh, okay.
two
Go
more.
ahead, finish.
The next one is the location from CUD and the 12-inch water line. This is just, there again, it's information you've had before, but I don't want to lose sight of this. To have the fire flow that is required for the school, this is CUD's proposed water line upgrade. They are in the process of getting ready to begin this work because of some of these other subdivisions, so it would be a sharing, split cost. So John, if you go to the next page. There is the breakdown, our cost right now, they call us the potential additional site. It's around $1 million would be our portion for the shared upgrade. It's a $2.5 million upgrade. CUD's paying, you see their portion, and then the other developers along the way are paying their portion depending upon how long the line is to get them where they need. So it's a sharing opportunity. We did a similar thing at Plainview. But I wanted to keep that out there, that is still there. And then last, this is a preliminary conclusion for the off-site traffic improvements. I will have their entire report, which is multiple pages. I got this today. They were rushing, trying to meet our deadline, so I'll be able to send that to you a little bit later. But basically, 3 things that we already knew, pretty much, that in front of the school, we need left turn, right turns, different traffic amenities, Cook's Lane, Rocky Fork and Lee Road. There's been some conversation with the city about it and also what we could do, but their proposal is there does need to be some remediation there. And instead of a signal based on the geometry of the roads, that we would probably be looking at a roundabout.
With high school drivers?
I figure some of them just go in circles.
I know, it's just, man.
The one that kind of surprised me is, based on the current numbers, is that Cook's Lane and Lee Road didn't require something. But I guess there's not enough neighborhoods out there yet, and it's almost at the county line. However, that large green section between Cook's Lane and the first yellow dot that says expect to operate acceptably under projected conditions, they've started that project, and there's about 500 or 600 homes in it.
Oh, wow.
They started knocking down trees and putting up silt fence in the last couple of weeks, so that's probably going to change, ma'am.
Is it on the Lee Road side?
It's between Lee Road and Rocky Fork. Between the gas line and us. It's kind of halfway between Cook's Lane and the property that we're looking at. There's a 500-acre squatch right there, and miraculously, they've started construction. And pretty much, that's all of the reports. We did not have anything that came back that really surprised us. Everything is fairly typical for this area. The wetland study was what I was, hate to say most interested in, but it came back very favorable to have a creek running through it. But I'll be glad to answer any questions and anything that you'd like to see more between now and Thursday or have a question on a report, just let me know and I'll be glad to answer it for you.
Ms. Maxwell?
Yes, Mr. Rosales.
Okay, thank you. So just to compare apples to apples in regards to the tests that were done, what is considered the Phase 1 environmental standard geological testing. So you presented the subsurface exploration.
That's the yes, ma'am.
We got a overview of what the traffic study is, but we're gonna receive the report later on, like soon. Are we going, we have this, the letter for the CUD, what is proposed. So my question is, are we going to have a letter to Tennessee Electric to work with them, like we did with the bathing property?
Middle Tennessee Electric,
Or whoever is electricity?
they already have the power there.
Okay.
They have no problem servicing us there.
Okay, perfect. And so then we've got the property survey and the wetlands survey. So that's all of the testings that we did, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so could we vote on this on Thursday if we wanted to move forward with purchasing this land and we decided, or are we gonna wait till you roll the numbers? Or, I mean, that will be the next step, will be to decide whether we're gonna buy this, purchase this property or not, right?
That is.
The motion is to move.
Oh, okay, it is, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, great,
Yeah, okay.
awesome.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move on.
Can I point
Yes,
out
go ahead.
something? So something, let's go ahead and do these two, and I'll connect it during the director's update.
Okay, okay.
Next is Whitworth Buchanan Middle Pavilion Request. CT and Principal April Sneeder submitting approval for the construction of an open-air pavilion, Rutherford County Schools Career and Technical Education Department, proposing the purchase of a 130 by 24 pavilion for Whitworth Buchanan Middle School. Cost for the pavilion is $92,544 and will be funded by the CT department using the Tennessee Innovative Schools Model Grant. Engineering Construction has reviewed the project and has no objections. Engineering will work with the school on the proposed location.
Okay, they're wanting to use the pavilion for
Outside activities.
just outside
Classroom. Yeah.
classrooms, okay. Okay,
Madam Chair.
yes.
Dr. Sullivan, do you know if that one went out for bid?
You check. Nothing has yet because we're just trying to get approval to do it first. So once the board approves,
Oh,
then
because it mentioned who was going to be doing
Oh,
the
did it in this
project.
one?
In the tab.
They provided that, so I'm assuming that they did put it out for bid. If they did not, it would have to be, because it's over the
and
threshold.
then they'd have their own internal audit finding too. So, yeah, so they know what they have to follow as well.
Oh, I was just curious, because that's why it just raised the question, because I thought, I wonder if we even have to do that when we're
Yeah.
using grant money. I
Oh,
didn't know
yes,
if that was the
absolutely.
thing.
They would
Even more
have
so
to.
when we're using grant money, because then you have more oversight.
The only way they could get away with it if it's an omnia bid,
State
one of the
contract.
brokers that's already been bid, that's approved by the state, there are vendors, we call them buy bid boards. If they were looking at one of them, then, and it's on that, then they could utilize it.
Okay, next.
So Rockville bus route, really just where we are in general with our bus routes. Trey, you got us an update on this one too? This is the Trey Lee show today.
Okay, Rockville, open routes, bus 184, bus 272, bus 320. We've sent out all call twice, no takers. Bus 156 has no driver. It's being covered by 2 other contractors. They do have a driver that's been training, and the driver is supposed to test on the 21st.
Where's that route? Is that route Rockville?
Yes, sir, those are all Rockville. Next area is Blackman. We have one open route there, bus 59. It has had an all-call, no takers. We currently have it covered by 2 other contractors. Laverne, open routes, we have bus 112 and 317. Special education open routes, bus 94, which is a Laverne, Smyrna area. It's being covered by 2 other buses. Bus 282 is a Siegel route, covered by 2 other buses. Bus 145 is a Siegel route. It's covered by other buses. We may have an option to work it out sometime later this week if the driver clears. We have a total of 9 open routes, 6 regular education buses, 3 special education buses. We currently have overloads that we are working to address and get routes readjusted in Stewart's Creek, Rock Springs Middle. Make sure I get them all. And we're working on some timing issues at Plainview. Following buses are without current drivers, meaning the route is taken, but they don't currently have someone to drive them. Bus 161 has an afternoon driver only, morning routes being covered by others. Bus 125, which is a Laverne area bus waiting on a driver to pass the test. Bus 156 is a Rockville area waiting on the driver to pass the test. Bus 306, the driver broke their arm and currently no driver to cover it. Currently, we are still operating under the old rules that on awarding routes. The old system goes away technically on Friday, the 29th of August. At that point, we would have two options if nobody takes the routes that are currently sitting out there. We would have the option to bring in a new contractor that meets our regulations, or we do what nobody wants to talk about. We buy a bus and try and hire our own driver. That would be our two options at that point.
We have somebody who wants to come in.
I don't know, sir. We haven't been able to make that offer because we haven't been able to offer it to them. But come the 29th, if these buses remain open, I'm going to ask our purchasing department to put something out there to see if there is someone that's in it, to advertise it. Until then, I'm not able to offer them anything because of the way our current contract reads, we can't bring in an outside contractor.
But can we buy our own buses? Can we buy a few buses,
If we
especially
could
sped?
find one right now, it would probably be a used one. I haven't looked for anything. I don't know what's available. I know the buses that were available to us have been acquired. So I have not reached out to the two vendors to see if they have anything in hand.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Ball.
Question. Would a policy change now related to experience and license help us? And what I'm getting at under the, you got to drive for us for 2 years, and I had mentioned last month, and I feel
That goes away on the 29th.
right. I feel pretty strongly about that if you've got a CDL A or B endorsement, why couldn't we? If you had anybody approach you that does not meet that first criteria,
What do you mean by
well, that is not driven for us for 2 years.
We've talked to one contractor out of Hamilton County that's kind of interested to see what it looks like.
But no other individual within
Have I
the
had an
county.
individual who's only been driving or never drove for us, walked up and said, hey, on the 29th, can I drive for you? The answer is no.
And that's what you're saying, go to market and go to purchase and put
And
that,
put it out there
that
for them,
out.
let people know that we now can, if you've got a bus and you've got a driver that meets qualifications, technically you could drive for us.
Okay,
Now, we're going to have a form that you have to fill out, and there's going to be a vetting process. I don't want the public to think we're just going to take anybody that walks in, but the answer to your question is, on September 2nd, we can start doing business with someone who's not under the old system.
right, and that's what I was getting at. What do we need to do to be proactive about that?
I'm getting there, and I don't know that today, we're a week and a half or 2 weeks away.
Right, and which leads me to the next thing you were talking about, well, if we had the buses, but the buses aren't the problem as much as finding a qualified driver.
True.
right?
Yes.
Because if we started hiring drivers, in all likelihood, they would come from some of the contractors we have
And they'd
now.
probably bring a bus for us to buy.
And we would be right back
And
same
we'd
place.
be right back, but they may have a route that someone would be interested in.
Right, and that's what.
But you don't know that till.
I kind of want everybody to be open-minded about this.
And that's what I'm saying, we'll, in 2 weeks, we'll have another option, and I don't know, maybe somebody will or won't take them between now and then, or we'll continue to do the best we can and cover them with other routes.
When you cover them with other routes, what do? Split the pay or something?
Yes, sir. Well, the simplified version is, we take the contractors that are on both sides and have them come closer to the middle.
Right.
And then whatever portion that is, they get paid that portion of that
But that
contract.
really makes that bus and that driver extremely efficient as far as return on investment.
The problem becomes, we start running into time problems and we start running into overloading, which is what we got in Rockville. Even though they're covered, it's taking longer to run them.
So then there's your two dilemmas.
They're late.
They're
So
late for
that- that We're late
class,
every day, the traffic varies, or
or they're late
they're
getting home.
overcrowded and they have to leave 9 kids standing there and go run and drop 10 or 15 children off and come back and pick
And
the
circle
9
them.
up and go back out again. You can't gauge the traffic, that's the problem. And the time. The time factor is what really gets us in the Rockville area, because the traffic is so, I'm gonna use the term horrendous. Not
that's
like it isn't anywhere else, but it's
It's worse at
brutal out
Rock.
there.
It-
You don't
it-
have many ways to get around it.
Yeah, you don't have, you've got to get back to Veterans Parkway. You can't, Armstrong Valley doesn't help you. Nothing helps you there. It's an island unto itself.
Yes, sir.
That's the reason you're having trouble picking up. The drivers just don't want to
They don't
mess
want to
with
fight
it.
the traffic.
All right, thank you.
You know, the problem is personnel. It's not about buses. You know, I think it'd be very beneficial to us to look at possibility of us hiring bus drivers to work for the county and to give them the option of, you know, if they want to go ahead and work out the 40-hour week to be custodians for the down period. You know, I think that, you know, to have those people and get them, I think it would be more attractive, and I think you'd get a lot of people that'd be willing to do that.
Well, we've looked at that. Dr. Sullivan sent an email to the Rockville schools that said, hey, if you got anybody that wants to drive, let us know. I got one email from Mr. Luker. He has one driver that wants to. The problem is, it's going to be difficult to tell a contractor that we're going to tell him who's going to put on his bus with him carrying the insurance. Now, I'm not saying that this person is a bad driver.
Wait a minute,
I just-
what was that again?
We would have, right now, we don't have a bus to run them ourselves. So they would have to drive for one of the contractors that don't have a driver. If we want to utilize our staff, we got to have a bus.
Right.
Now, here's the problem, and we've looked at it, and I don't have a perfect solution, maybe everybody else can. I have a high school teacher or custodian that wants to work. Custodian's a little bit easier because we could make their shift flexible, because they're gonna have to drive an hour to get to run the elementary run. They start an hour ahead of the high school. So they're going to be working an hour and a half before they start their day at the high school. They bring the high school kids to school, let them off, park their bus, go to work. No problem. They're going to have to leave an hour and a half early, which is going to knock out a coach or a teacher or something like that wants to help, because they've got to go run the elementary route.
Can that person drive bus 161? They need a morning driver.
That would be great, if we could find one in that, you know, that area, and if it works. It's because you have one-offs, it's difficult. It sounds easy. We used to have 4 or 5 contractors that worked in our nutrition department and work custodians.
Right.
And we allowed them to have flexible hours, Like the nutrition staff would be a 5.5-hour person because they finish after the students eat. They were able to leave that high school and go run their elementary route because they were off for the day. So there are one-offs that do work, and we would be willing to work with them if we had our own bus. And if they had their own bus, and that's what these were. These were contractors who actually worked for us, and it worked. If it works, we're all for it. We have no objection to it. We've done it in the past.
Yes, Mr. Vaughn, and then Ms. Darby.
Whoops, you were still talking. I was going to say, in this marketing campaign, or trying to come up with ideas, would it do any good to put out some type of solicitation to our current employees? And with that idea, I see what you're getting at. If you had the same driver trying to drive mornings and afternoons, that messes it up. But what if you had a team situation? If you know, one teacher drives in the morning, one teacher drives in the afternoon. I may be asking for trouble right there, but I'm trying to be creative.
And I'm all for creative. The problem is I got to have that driver in that zone. In other words, that teacher's got to work in at those 2 or 3 schools.
Right. It would have to be, there was a concept here years ago, team teaching, right? That kind of worked. I don't know if we can, team bus driver here, I don't know if that would work or not, but I'm just, in your due diligence, I'm wondering if you poll your, I would say, custodians, maintenance workers, any that work in a particular area that stay pretty close. I don't know, just trying to help you figure it out.
Rockville, we threw it out to all the schools there. We had one that was willing to consider it.
Not much takers then.
No, and then
You'll have to bribe them.
We're willing to be creative, we are.
That's fine.
Yes, Ms. Darby.
Have we talked to our current contractors to see if anybody has buses and just doesn't have drivers besides the ones that we're aware of? And have we thought about putting out that information to the custodians, to the nutrition workers, to say, hey, these contractors are looking for drivers. If you're interested, they have buses.
We've had two
Trying to, like,
reach
match
out
'em
to,
up.
one reached out to James Evans and one reached out to us that they were looking to be a driver. One of them lived in the Christiana area. We sent that person's information to all the drivers that are looking, contractors that are looking for drivers. We sent them their phone number and contact information. If somebody contacts us looking to be a driver, we're sending them their way.
Right, I just mean, there could be somebody in nutrition that hasn't really thought about it before and didn't know that it could work with their schedule. So I'm just wondering, trying to be proactive, out of the box a little bit, would it
Sure.
be beneficial to just kind of send those positions within our district that would work well with them also being a driver, to just say, hey, if you've never thought about it, maybe think about it.
We could send that out, and then we could send the information to the contractors, because ultimately it's up to them whether they employ them or not. But yes, we could.
If we could hire them, and the benefits that they would get, to me, would be a big draw, I just think that'd be a big asset.
The vast, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, so, I don't know about the rest of the board, but I've been included in, threads of parents that have not, understand the complexities of why we're in a situation where we are, especially in the Rockville area. And so, thank you for sharing all this information, Trey. So my question to you is if we have these 9 open routes, and then we've got options on August 29th, and if we open it up for the contractors and they don't take up any of these contracts, when are you putting that for bid to see if we can, or I guess what options can we have about buying buses if we have to? What will be the timeline for that decision so that we can cover ourselves? Because I will tell you, there are parents that I've gotten, that have been part of text messages and even emails, that they're frustrated because of this, especially in the Rockville area. That's where I'm getting a lot of complaints for. And so they don't understand this whole 30-day contract, what expired, the new thing, like none of that really factors in. All they're seeing is that their child is taking forever to get home, is taking longer, and they're just voices their concerns.
Ask them if they're willing to drive the bus.
Yes, absolutely. That's right. That is a part of it. So I think my question would be so that they can see that we're moving and we're making decisions and there's traction to fix this issue. So what would the timeline would be if we were to buy buses so that we could have the buses to operate ourselves? If it ends up being that after open it up to everybody, they don't take up, the contractors don't, that's if the contractors do not pick up this routes, then we're still having to figure out how they're gonna be, how do we drive these routes? So, I mean, ultimately, we'll be buying buses.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. It's very frustrating to be the director of schools and know that there's a problem and not have the tools to be able to solve it. And
So-
I don't have the tools to solve it. And
Yeah, so
whether or
I
not
think-
buying the buses is the right idea, I don't know until the 29th. And I know it's
Right.
not a good answer, but that's,
Right, so I understand that. The 29th is a deadline, all right, I understand. But we don't meet again until like officially as a board meeting September
9th.
9th. So from the 30th to the 9th, there's no board decision action for you, Trey Lee or you to move forward in what are the options, other than that, waiting and see. So if we see that there's nothing, I don't know why we're gonna wait till September 9th to make a decision when we can make preliminary decisions in the event of something were to that there's no contractors are taking those routes and we're being proactive. And the parents can see that we are being proactive instead of just waiting, and then it delays everything till September 9th. Because ultimately, we're gonna have to make some hard decisions. And I'd rather do that now that we're meeting, knowing that we know this information, than waiting to September 9th.
Mr. Tittle?
On August 29th, I mean, to a lot of the discussion here, the best thing to do, Dr. Sullivan, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the best decision at this time is just to let these parents know, hey, our hands are tied until the 29th as part of the contract, but there are going to be some options that may open up at the 29th, and as far as purchasing or anything, if we were to go down some route like that, you'd still need time to collect and see what options there are, so that's not going to be something we can just turn over and grant you permission ahead of time for. But as far as the current options, letting parents know, hey, we're doing our best what we can. Hopefully some drivers come in, snag these things. If they don't, by the 29th, we'll have a few more tools at our disposal at that point, and then you'll have information to follow back up with us. Is that a fair assessment of how that's going to go?
Currently, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Sullivan?
I know we've talked about the negative, but I do want to thank our contractors because we started off June with 200 and 300 open routes. And so we're talking about 9 out of 350. And so I know that's too many. One is too many, but it's not out of the norm of how we're normally operating here. How many did we have open last year throughout the year? 10? I think we discussed 10, 12.
Probably about the same number. It was a lot quieter because they were in areas where it was one-offs. They were scattered, one in Laverne, one here. We've got 3 in
In
that
one spot,
Rockville
yeah.
area, which makes it even harder. We've got the overcrowding. There's 2 or 3 in the same place. I mean, that's what makes it hard, and the fact that nobody is taking the routes is kind of unusual too, but they don't want to get in that traffic.
The only other thing I'll say about Rockville Trey, and I met last week, we are looking at changing adding some extra spot for the buses to be able to turn, just making some modifications to the campus to be able to help. And then we know that Mr. Luker is meeting with representative from the Sheriff's Department to look at another crossing guard at a back part of the campus. So we're trying everything that we possibly can to get it moving.
We do have one thing that we're doing that's it's slow, and the drivers are frustrated. I can't help them. It's the permit process for 99 and getting that outbound lane added going back toward Murfreesboro. so that they don't have to stop traffic so far back, so that the buses can make the right-hand turn coming out of there without having to get into the turning lane. So we're working through some of those things along with the internal changes as well.
Ms. Dorr.
Mr. Lee, the person that reached out about driving to you, are they only wanting to drive for the district and they're against driving for a contractor?
They're not against driving for the contractor.
Okay. So it wouldn't make a difference whether it was for the district or a contractor? Okay. Because I do know, and just so that anyone who's watching in the public is aware, I do know there have been issues with the third-party testers that drivers that are waiting to be tested have to test through. They have had several people leave, and it's delayed things, and there's been all kinds of stuff there. So there are some extenuating circumstances, I think, that have made the process a little more difficult for everybody. So there are things going on. I think the best thing we can do, which I know Mr. Lee and Wanda have been working on, is making sure we stay on top of our communication to the parents, just so that they're kind of kept in the loop. I think as long as they know that we are diligently working on it, it helps to definitely ease that. Most of our parents are understanding as long as they have time and information to kind of make alternate arrangements if necessary. So appreciate everybody's work on that.
Okay.
Yeah, just a couple things, director's update. So enrollment, and so that's my only concern with the potential September date is, we talked about at the beginning, we're not going to have all enrollment solidified yet. So if we make decisions with our building plan, just know that we're going to have more students that aren't really, we don't know that they're there yet to the big, because RSP is using our October enrollment. I can ask him to use September's enrollment, but it doesn't show all of our students yet. So just be aware of that. Our enrollment is same date. So the 7th day of school last year, we were at 51,106, and this is just our students. So just K-12, not pre-K, not our 2 authorized charter schools. This is just K-12, doesn't include pre-K. 51,106. Today we're at 51,100 at the time I checked it. So down 6 students. Very similar to last year, we grew several hundred throughout the year as students continued to add, and we had a big jump from August to October, so I would anticipate that. Our biggest drop right now is in kindergarten, and so kindergarten is strange. We're still trying to figure that out. It's kind of a statewide thing right now. This time last year, we had 2,798 kindergartners, and right now we have 2,645. A little bit over 150 kindergartners down. 12th grade is up 45 kids. So it's just some fluctuations kind of throughout. We were last year funded on 51,589, and so that gives you an idea kind of as the year goes on. It's an average of your funding periods. So we're continuing to add students, especially at the high school level. High school where we're seeing the biggest growth, middle and high school, which has kind of been our trend the last year. Talk more about that on Thursday. The biggest concern that I have is, and something we very well may do in the next couple of days, is Browns Chapel and Stewart's Creek. So Browns Chapel is under 600 students, and Stewart's Creek Elementary, I mentioned this the last time, as of today, was at 1146.
Was
And
what?
1146. Poplar Hill is within where we thought. There's about 150 kids roughly that should be at Browns Chapel that are at Stewart's Creek still based on the projections. And so we've got to do some investigation to see where did those students go. I know Stewart's Creek is still growing, where the Browns Chapel students go. And we're probably going to, Thursday, ask for volunteers if anybody wants to go from Stewart's Creek to Browns Chapel at a smaller school. I don't know that we'll have many takers, but you can always kind of offer that as an option if you want to go to a smaller school with potentially a smaller class size to try to get some students out of Stewart's Creek before we can address that zoning. So that's just kind of, that's the one, we do a district-wide rezone. I don't like that we have any, but to have one, it's kind of where we are right now. It's a strange zone.
Ms. Shaw.
Dr. Sullivan, are we still capped at Stewart's Creek? as
We are
far as
not.
enrollment?
So we could always put that back in place too.
I think we need to do that.
Yeah, probably.
Any other questions? Okay. General discussion, anyone have anything?
Yes. I'd just like to say, U.S. News and World Report came out with a rating of high schools in the country. Central Maine was #1 high school in the state of Tennessee and 3rd nationally. So, I mean, that's pretty high cop.
Because of McFadden. It's really all because of the history of that building. You know, the spirits in that building have stayed over the years, and it just fell on John Ash when it took off.
And he's listening and watching, so all kudos to him, right?
Okay, anything else?
I'd like to say thank you for the longer mic stands.
Very nice. That's all.
I just want to say that the Riverdale ribbon cutting was very nice. So was the Smith Springs community ribbon cutting. That was very, very nice. And so it was well done.
Thank you.
Really excited to be a part of
I thought they
that.
both went really, really well, and I was a proud graduate of Riverdale, and I'm glad to be part of that. Thank you for everyone for being there, and we are adjourned.